Welcome back to the channel Valuable Coins History. Today, we're going to uncover the full history of the 1981p United States quarter dollar, a coin that may look ordinary, but carries a fascinating story of America's economy, minting traditions, and numismatic heritage. From its George Washington design to its role during the inflation era of the 1980s, this quarter is more than just 25 cents. It's a piece of history in your hands. Let's dive deep into its journey. Top 5 first up. The 1981p quarter dollar is part of the long-running Washington Quarter Series, a design that had been in circulation since 1932. This coin was originally struck to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and its design became so iconic that it was adopted as the regular issue quarter for decades. By 1981, the Washington quarter was already a familiar sight in American commerce, trusted by the public as one of the most widely used denominations. The obverse of the 1981p quarter features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. Washington is depicted in a classical style, with the inscriptions Liberty at the top, In God We Trust at the left, and the date 1981 at the bottom. The mint mark P appears to the right of Washington's ponytail, signifying that the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The reverse of the coin shows an eagle with widespread wings, perched on a bundle of arrows with 2 olive branches below, symbolizing America's strength and desire for peace. Above the eagle is the inscription, United States of America, and below it is a denomination quarter dollar. The phrase e pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, sits between the eagle's wings. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 601 million quarters in 1981, marked with a P. This was a time when the demand for coinage was very high in the United States due to inflation and the increasing use of vending machines and payphones. These machines required large amount of quarters, making the denomination essential for everyday commerce. The composition of the 1981 quarter was the same as all circulating quarters since 1965, made of cupronickel clad, a copper core layered with an alloy of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This replaced the 90% silver quarters that had been discontinued after 1964 due to rising silver prices. The clad composition ensured that quarters remained affordable to produce while still retaining durability. The diameter of the 1981p quarter is 24.3 millimeters, with a weight of 5.67 grams and a reeded edge. These specifications match the new clad quarter standards, ensuring that the coin would function properly in vending machines and slot mechanisms that relied on precise weight and size. 1981 was significant because it was a year of economic challenges in the United States. Inflation, high interest rates, and unemployment were pressing issues. Quarters, as one of the most widely circulated coins, were a reminder of the nation's reliance on cash transactions during a period of economic uncertainty. The 1981p quarter thus became not just a medium of exchange, but also a reflection of the times. Though not considered rare due to its massive mintage, the 1981p quarter is still collected by numismatists, especially in higher grades. Most examples found in circulation today show heavy wear, as they were widely used in commerce. Uncirculated pieces, especially those with strong strikes and few marks, carry a premium. The Philadelphia Mint had only begun placing mint marks on its coins in 1980. Before that, coins from Philadelphia carried no mark at all. Thus, the 1981p quarter was only the second year in which Philadelphia quarters bore the P mint mark, making an interesting piece for collectors tracing the history of mint marks. Many collectors seek the 1981p quarter in mint state MS, or even in proof-like condition from specially struck sets. While circulation strikes are plentiful, superb gem examples graded MS67 or higher are very scarce. Such coins often command strong prices in auctions and coin shows. Errors and varieties also exist with the 1981p quarter, though they are not as common as in earlier years. Some examples include off-center strikes, die cracks, or weakly struck details due to worn dies. These error coins can fetch much higher values depending on their rarity and visual appeal. The Washington Quarter Series continued with the Eagle Reverse until 1998, after which it was replaced by the famous 50-state quarters program in 1999. Therefore, the 1981p quarter sits firmly in the classic eagle reverse era, which many collectors view with nostalgia as a symbol of pre-1990s American coinage. Historically, the 1981p quarter also represents a transitional period in American numismatics. The U.S. Mint was experimenting with new coinage programs and preparing for the changes that would dominate the late 20th century, such as the state quarters, the Sacagawea dollar, and various commemorative issues. In this sense, the 1981p quarter is both traditional and modern. Circulation finds of the 1981p quarter today are becoming less frequent, as many of these coins have worn down, been lost, or pulled from circulation by collectors. Most examples that remain in pocket change will show decades of wear, often making it hard to read fine details. In terms of value, a heavily circulated 1981p quarter is worth only face value, 25 cents. However, uncirculated examples range from $2 to $15, with superb gem coins graded MS-67 selling for $300 or more in auctions. Error coins can go even higher depending on rarity. The legacy of the 1981p quarter lies in its role as a workhorse coin of its time. It was produced in massive quantities, widely circulated across the nation, and carried the image of the first U.S. President, George Washington. For collectors, it represents not only an essential part of a date and mint mark set, but also a tangible reminder of America's economic and cultural landscape in the early 1980s. Next up, the 1982p quarter dollar belongs to the Washington Quarter Series, one of the most iconic coins in American numismatics. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, the series became a permanent replacement for the standing Liberty Quarter. By 1982, the Washington Quarter had already been in circulation for 50 years, undergoing several transformations in metal composition, minting techniques, and national significance. The Philadelphia Mint's 1982 issue is particularly noteworthy due to changes in U.S. coin production during the early 1980s. The obverse of the 1982p quarter features a left-facing bust of George Washington, sculpted by John Flanagan. Above Washington's head is the word Liberty, while beneath his chin sits the national motto, "In God We Trust." The year of mintage, 1982, appears below the bust. Unlike earlier Philadelphia issues, the 1982 quarter carried the P mint mark, a practice that had only recently begun in 1980. Before that time, Philadelphia minted quarters bore no mint mark, making this period historically significant. The reverse of the coin retains Flanagan heraldic eagle design. A proud eagle with outstretched wings perches on a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and readiness to defend the nation. Below the arrows lies an olive branch, representing peace. The inscriptions read, United States of America at the top, E pluribus unum beneath, and quarter dollar along the bottom rim. This imagery reflected America's balance between military preparedness and the pursuit of peace. By 1982, the composition of the quarter had already shifted away from silver. Since 1965, Washington quarters were struck in a clad composition of copper and nickel. The 1982p quarter followed the standard, with a core of pure copper sandwiched between two layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel alloy. This gave the coin its silver-like appearance while maintaining durability for circulation. The quarter weighed 5.67 grams and had a diameter of 24.3 millimeters. One of the unique aspects of the 1982p quarter is that it was minted during a time when the U.S. Mint faced budget constraints and production changes. Unlike other years, no official mint sets were released in 1982. Collectors could not purchase specially struck, uncirculated coins directly from a mint. This made high-quality examples of the 1982p quarter relatively scarcer in later years, as most entered circulation. The mintage of the 1982p quarter was significant, with more than 500 million pieces struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Despite this high number, most were heavily circulated, leading to relatively few well-preserved coins surviving in mint state grades. This reality has contributed to collector interest in high-grade 1982 quarters today. During the early 1980s, the Mint experimented with production techniques and quality control. As a result, the 1982 P quarter is known for a number of striking varieties and errors. Some examples include weak strikes, off-center coins, and doubling in inscriptions. These errors are highly sought after by collectors, with prices rising significantly depending on rarity and condition. One of the main reasons the 1982 P quarter is memorable among numismatists is the introduction of the P mint mark on Philadelphia quarters. Although the mint mark had been used on other denominations earlier, its presence on quarters in the early 1980s marked a historic change. This ensured that collectors could distinguish Philadelphia coins more easily from those minted in Denver and San Francisco. Another point of interest is the economic context of the early 1980s. The United States was experiencing inflation and financial adjustments, and coinage was central to daily transactions. Quarters, being one of the most commonly used coins in commerce, were heavily produced and circulated. The 1982 P quarter became a part of everyday American life, whether in vending machines, parking meters, or pocket change. The Washington quarter design used in 1982 was intended to be temporary back in 1932. The original plan was for a one-year commemorative issue. However, the coin proved so popular that it remained in use for decades, with only minor modifications. Thus, the 1982 P quarter carried forward a design legacy that was already half a century old. Philadelphia's role in minting the 1982 quarter was also symbolic. The Philadelphia Mint, established in 1792, is the nation's first official mint. By 1982, it was striking coins with advanced machinery capable of producing hundreds of millions of quarters per year. The P mint mark not only marked its physical location, but also symbolized its importance in America's monetary history. In terms of value, circulated 1982 P quarters generally remain worth their face value of 25 cents. However, uncirculated examples, especially those graded MS-65 and above, can fetch several dollars on the collector market. Error coins, proof-like strikes, or exceptionally high-grade specimens can be worth significantly more. This makes the 1982 P quarter an interesting case where everyday pocket change can sometimes reveal hidden treasures. The absence of government-issued mint set in 1982 forced collectors to rely on finding coins directly from circulation or private mint products. This challenge created long-term demand for pristine examples. Today, many collectors still seek well-struck 1982 P quarters to complete their Washington quarter sets, particularly those assembling clad series collections. The coin also sits at an important transitional moment in U.S. coinage history. Just a few years later, in 1999, the Washington quarter design will be replaced by the highly successful 50 state quarters program. Thus, the 1982 P quarter represents one of the last decades of the traditional Washington design before new themes reshaped the coin's cultural role. For coin enthusiasts, the 1982 P quarter holds both historical and sentimental value. It embodies the mint's economic realities, production innovations, and the everyday experiences of Americans during the early Reagan era. It is also an example how ordinary coins often carry extraordinary stories for those who study their origins and significance. In summary, the 1982 P quarter dollar is far more than just another circulating coin. It reflects the evolution of U.S. minting practices, the endurance of George Washington's image on coinage, and the challenges collectors face in acquiring pristine examples. With its high mintage, introduction of the Philadelphia P mint mark, lack of official mint sets, and variety of collectible errors, this coin continues to attract attention in the numismatic world. Whether kept for its monetary value or historical charm, the 1982 P quarter stands as a lasting piece of American heritage. Next up, the 1987 P Washington quarter belongs to the long-running Washington quarter series, which began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the obverse of the coin prominently features a left-facing bust of Washington, symbolizing leadership, patriotism, and the enduring legacy of America's first president. By 1987, the Washington quarter had already been in circulation for 55 years, making it one of the most recognizable and widely used coins in American currency history. The Philadelphia Mint produced a 1987 quarter with the P Mint mark, located just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Prior to 1980, Quarters struck in Philadelphia carried no mint mark, so the 1987 P quarter is part of the later issues where the Philadelphia P became standard. This change was made to make coinage origin more transparent, especially as collectors and economists place greater importance on tracking mint activity and production figures. In terms of mintage, the 1987 P quarter had a very high production run, with 562,052,000 pieces struck. This immense number reflects a heavy demand for quarters in the U.S. economy at the time, as they were crucial for vending machines, parking meters, telephone booths, and everyday commerce. The high circulation numbers also mean that most 1987 quarters were used extensively, and finding pristine examples today is relatively more challenging. The obverse design retained Flanagan's portrait of Washington, though by 1987, critics often noted that the design had become worn and less detailed due to repeated dye use. Despite this, the coin still carries Washington's stately profile with the inscriptions Liberty above his head, In God We Trust to the left, and the date 1987 centered below. The small P mint mark identifies its Philadelphia origin. The reverse of the 1987 P quarter features a heraldic eagle, a proud symbol of American strength and freedom. With outstretched wings and arrows in its talons, the eagle sits perched on a bundle of olive branches, representing both military preparedness and the nation's desire for peace. The inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum surround the eagle, with $quarter at the bottom. This iconic eagle design was standard on quarters from 1932 until 1998. The quarter is made of a copper-nickel-clad composition, introduced in 1965 after silver was removed from circulating dimes and quarters. This composition consists of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, bonded together to create a durable coin suitable for decades of circulation. The change from silver to clad was a result of rising silver prices in the early 1960s, and by 1987, this clad composition was fully established as the normal standard. The diameter of the 1987 quarter is 24.3 millimeters, with a thickness of 1.75 millimeters and a weight of 5.67 grams. Its reeded edge contains 119 tiny grooves, a feature originally designed to prevent shaving or clipping precious metal from coins when they were struck in silver. Even in 1987, when silver was long gone, the reeded edge continued as a traditional and anti-counterfeiting measure. By the mid-1980s, the Washington quarter was one of the most heavily circulated coins in America, as inflation had reduced the purchasing power of smaller denominations. Pennies and nickels were increasingly less useful in vending machines or transportation fares, while quarters became the dominant coin for everyday commerce. The 1987 P quarter therefore played an essential role in daily transactions across the nation. For collectors, the 1987 P quarter is not considered rare due to its enormous mintage. Most circulated examples hold only face value. However, uncirculated examples, especially those with sharp strike and no wear, are more desirable. Collectors often seek out examples graded MS65 or higher, where the coin shows full mint luster, minimal contact marks, and sharp detail. Proof versions of the 1987 Washington quarter were also produced at the San Francisco Mint with the S Mint mark. These proof coins were struck on specially polished dies and planchets, resulting in a mirror-like finish and frosted details. The 1987 P business strike coins, by contrast, were mass-produced for circulation and lack such refinement, though they still hold historical importance. In terms of errors, collectors sometimes encounter 1987 P quarters with off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, or die cracks. While none of these are officially widespread varieties, error coins can bring significant premiums depending on severity. For instance, a dramatic off-center strike that still shows full details of Washington's face could be highly collectible. Another point of interest is the gradual wear the dies used at the Philadelphia Mint in the late 1980s. High-speed presses struck millions of quarters daily, and as dies wore down, the sharpness of Washington's hair details and the eagle's feathers weakened. This has made well-struck examples from fresh dies particularly desirable for collectors of high-grade coins. The historical context of the 1987 quarter is also worth noting. The U.S. economy in the mid-1980s was marked by strong consumer spending, technological growth, and changes in how people handle money. ATMs and credit cards were beginning to expand, but quarters were still indispensable for payphones, arcade games, laundromats, and public transit. Thus, the 1987 P quarter was both a workhorse of commerce and a symbol of daily American life. In circulated condition, most 1987 P quarters remain worth just 25 cents a day. In uncirculated grades, they typically range between $2 and $10, depending on grade. Gem quality examples, MS-67 and higher, can bring $50 to several $100s at auction, largely due to the difficulty of finding a flawless survivor among such a massive mintage. For collectors of Washington quarters, the 1987 P issue is part of the broader set that bridges the gap between the traditional Eagle reverse and the state quarters program, which would launch in 1999. This makes it historically significant as one of the final classic Eagle quarters of the 20th century. Collectors often include it in complete sets to preserve the continuity of the Washington Quarter series. Overall, the 1987 P Washington Quarter embodies the everyday coinage of late 20th century America. It may not be rare or composed of precious metal, but it carries the weight of history as a tool of commerce, a tribute to George Washington, and a representation of American identity. Its massive mintage ensured that nearly every American citizen of the 1980s handled it countless times, making it one of the most common yet historically meaningful coins of its era. Next up, the 1988 P Washington Quarter is part of the long-running Washington Quarter series, which began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By the year 1988, the Washington Quarter had already been in circulation for more than 5 decades and had become one of the most familiar coins in the pockets of Americans. The obverse design, created by sculptor John Flanagan, depicts the left-facing bust of George Washington, while the reverse features an eagle with spread wings perched on a bundle of arrows with 2 olive branches beneath it. The P mint mark found on the 1988 P quarter indicates that it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which had resumed using the P mint mark in 1980 for all denominations except a cent. Before this time, Philadelphia minted quarters carried no mint mark, making post-1980 issues easy to identify. By 1988, the Philadelphia Mint had become one of the largest coin producers in the world, striking hundreds of millions of quarters annually to meet the high demand for coinage in commerce. The quarter of this era was composed of copper-nickel clad metal. The outer layers consisted of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a core of pure copper. This metallic composition had been adopted in 1965, replacing the earlier 90% silver quarters. The change was due to rising silver prices in the 1960s, which had made silver coins too valuable to circulate effectively. By 1988, the clad quarter had been in production for over 2 decades and was fully accepted by the public. The mintage of the 1988 P quarter was extremely high, with more than 562 million coins produced. This massive output reflects the expanding U.S. economy of the late 1980s, when quarters were heavily needed for vending machines, parking meters, toll booths, and everyday transactions. Because of this huge mintage, the 1988 P quarter is generally considered common in circulated condition, though higher-grade uncirculated examples remain collectible. From a historical perspective, the 1988 P quarter is a window into America during the late Cold War era. It circulated during the presidency of Ronald Reagan and later George H.W. Bush, a period marked by economic growth, cultural changes, and global political shifts. While the coin itself remained unchanged in design, it became part of the fabric of everyday life in an era of rapid modernization, where quarters were essential for payphones, arcade machines, and coin-operated laundries. Collectors often study the 1988 P quarter for potential errors and varieties. While most examples are standard, error types such as off-center strikes, double dies, or planchet flaws can make certain specimens valuable. Because of the high speed of coin production at the Philadelphia Mint, minor striking anomalies are not uncommon. These mint errors, when preserved in good condition, can significantly increase collector interest. In terms of design, the obverse of the 1988 P quarter retained Flanagan portrait of Washington, which had been slightly modified in 1965 when the clad coinage was introduced. The word liberty appears above Washington's head. In God We Trust is to the left, and the year 1988 is centered below the portrait. The mint mark P is located just behind Washington's ponytail, above the year. This design had become deeply familiar to the American people by the 1980s. The reverse side of the coin displayed the eagle design that had been used since 1932, though it was eventually retired in 1998. This classic heraldic style eagle symbolized strength, authority, and unity. The inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum surround the eagle at the top, while quarter dollar is inscribed along the bottom rim. This design would remain the face of the quarter until the launch of the 50 state quarters program in 1999. One notable aspect of the 1988 P quarter is its relatively low numismatic premium due to its vast mintage. In circulated grades, these coins typically hold only face value. However, coins preserved in mint state 65 or higher can command higher prices among collectors, especially if they have strong luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks. The scarcity of pristine examples comes not from the mintage, but from the difficulty of preserving circulation strike coins in perfect condition. The Philadelphia Mint's role in producing the 1988 P quarter also highlights the scale of modern coinage operations. Advanced high-speed presses were capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute, and the mint was working around the clock to ensure that commerce had sufficient supply. The P mint mark signifies not only the origin of the coin, but also the strength of U.S. coinage production in the late 20th century. When compared with earlier Washington quarters, the 1988 P issue illustrates how designs can persist for decades even as society evolves. In the 1930s, quarters were struck in silver and represented a significant amount of purchasing power. By 1988, inflation had reduced the quarter's value, yet its utility in everyday life remained crucial. This continuity demonstrates the cultural stability of U.S. coinage traditions, even amidst economic change. The 1988 P quarter also holds importance for coin roll hunters and collectors of Washington quarters by date and mint mark. Completing a full collection of clad Washington quarters is a challenge, and while the 1988 P is not rare, it represents a necessary piece of that historical puzzle. For many collectors, discovering a high-grade 1988 P in circulation is still a rewarding experience. Over time, the coin has gained recognition as a transitional piece leading up to the end of the eagle reverse design. Within just over a decade after 1988, the Washington quarter would undergo dramatic design changes, beginning with the 1999 state quarters and later the America the Beautiful series. Thus, the 1988 P quarter represents the final years of the original Washington quarter tradition. For era collectors, specific varieties of the 1988 P quarter can be particularly desirable. Examples with doubling on the date or lettering, as well as misaligned dies, can be worth considerably more than face value. Such coins are rare but serve as highlights for specialized Washington quarter collections. Era collecting adds another layer of interest to an otherwise common coin. In summary, the 1988 P Washington quarter is a coin that embodies both everyday utility and historical significance. It's circulated widely during a transformative period in American history, carried a design that had endured since 1932, and was produced in staggering numbers to meet economic demand. While most examples remain common, uncirculated pieces and era varieties provide collectors with lasting value. Ultimately, the 1988 P quarter may seem ordinary at first glance, but when examined closely, it reveals the story of American coinage during the late 20th century. It reflects a balance between tradition and practicality, continuity and change, and serves as a tangible link between the Washington quarters of the past and the redesigned quarters that would soon dominate U.S. coinage. Next up, the 1980 P. Washington quarter dollar holds an important place in the history of United States coinage, as it was struck during a period of economic change and widespread use in everyday commerce. The quarter dollar had long been one of the most circulated coins in America, and by 1980, it had already seen nearly 5 decades of continuous minting with George Washington's portrait. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of America's first president, the Washington quarter became a permanent part of U.S. coinage and was struck each year thereafter. The 1980 P issue reflects both the long tradition of design and the evolving needs of the U.S. Mint during a time of heavy coin production. The Philadelphia Mint, represented by the P mint mark beginning in 1980, struck these quarters in massive numbers to meet the demands of commerce. Prior to 1980, Philadelphia minted coins had generally gone without a mint mark, but the U.S. Mint made a major change that year, the addition of the P mint mark on circulating coins. This means that the 1980 P quarter is historically significant because it marked the first time that the Philadelphia Mint openly identified itself on the Washington quarter. For collectors, this made the coin a milestone in modern U.S. numismatics. The obverse of the 1980 P quarter features a familiar bust of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. Washington is depicted facing left, with the word liberty above his head and the national motto, "In God We Trust, place of the left." Beneath Washington's neck is the date 1980, which anchors the design in its historical period. The simple yet powerful design was praised for its dignity and became a long-standing fixture of American currency. On the reverse, the 1980 P quarter retains Flanagan heraldic eagle design, which had been in place since the coin's debut in 1932. The eagle is shown with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows with two olive branches below, symbolizing America's strength and defense and its desire for peace. Surrounding the central image are the inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum, along with the denomination $quarter at the bottom. This combination of symbols reflects America's balance of power, unity, and democracy. Compositionally, the 1980 P quarter was struck in copper-nickel clad, a material adopted in 1965 after silver was eliminated from circulating quarters. Rising silver prices in the 1960s made it impossible for the mint to continue producing 90% silver coins for circulation, leading to the clad copper-nickel format that is still in use today. Each 1980 quarter contains an inner core of pure copper and an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its familiar silvery appearance. The Philadelphia Mint struck an enormous 635,832,000 quarters in 1980, making this one of the most common dates of the series. Such high mintages were necessary to keep up with the growing demand for coinage in the late 20th century, as the American economy expanded and relied heavily on cash transactions. With so many struck, most 1980 P quarters circulated widely, and pristine examples can be difficult to find without wear. One of the reasons the 1980 P quarter is important is that it represents the beginning of a new era for mint marks. Collectors had long noted mint marks from Denver and San Francisco, but the addition of P gave Philadelphia a visible identity for the first time on the quarter. This seemingly small change has great significance, as it allowed for easier tracking of minting history and made it simpler for collectors to identify coins by origin. The year 1980 was also a fascinating period in American history, both economically and politically. Inflation had been high throughout the 1970s, and the value of money was under pressure. Coins like the quarter remained essential for everyday purchases, parking meters, vending machines, and payphones. As credit cards were not yet widely used for small transactions, coins carried enormous importance in daily life, making the quarter the workhorse of the U.S. economy. While not considered rare in circulated condition, the 1980 P quarter can be collectible in high grades. Mint State MS. Examples, especially those graded MS65 or higher, are much scarcer because of the huge numbers that went into circulation. Coins with sharp strikes, clean surfaces, and strong luster are valued by collectors, as most surviving examples have dings, scratches, or dull toning from use. There are also varieties and errors that make the 1980 P quarter more interesting. Missed strikes, off-center strikes, and double-die errors can bring substantial premiums in the numismatic market. Collectors always examine 1980 P quarters closely for such anomalies, as they stand out from the otherwise common production. The presence of such errors provides a window into the minting process and its occasional imperfections. The Washington quarter design that appeared on the 1980 P issue was the longest-running quarter design in U.S. history up to that time. It would remain unchanged until 1999, when the 50-state quarters program introduced a wave of new designs celebrating each state. Thus, the 1980 P quarter represents the late years of the traditional Washington Eagle reverse, a design that had become familiar to generations of Americans. In terms of circulation, the 1980 P quarter traveled far and wide across the United States. Millions of Americans handled these coins in their pockets, purses, and cash registers. As such, the coin is not only a piece of monetary history, but also a cultural artifact. Each surviving example tells a story of daily life in the early 1980s, from buying gasoline and groceries to making phone calls at public payphones. The 1980 P quarter also reflects the Philadelphia Mint's increasing role in coin production. As one of the oldest mints in the nation, Philadelphia was central to the U.S. Mint's operations, and a decision to begin placing its mint mark on quarters highlighted its importance. This was a symbolic shift, as it reinforced the visibility of Philadelphia's contribution to the nation's coinage. Collectors often view the 1980 P quarter as a transitional coin. It bridges the gap between the earlier decades of Washington quarters without mint marks from Philadelphia and the modern system, where every coin clearly shows its origin. For new collectors, it is one of the easier coins to find, yet it carries educational value for understanding changes in minting policy. In numismatic value, most circulated 1980 P quarters are worth face value, though uncirculated examples can range from a couple of dollars to much higher depending on grade. Superb gem examples, especially those certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC, can reach notable premiums due to their scarcity in pristine condition. Error coins from this year can also command impressive prices, sometimes hundreds of dollars, depending on rarity. Ultimately, the 1980 P Washington quarter is a coin that combines accessibility with historical importance. While common in circulation, it stands as a landmark issue because it was the first year the Philadelphia Mint mark appeared on a quarter. It reflects America's economic life in the early 1980s, the enduring legacy of the Washington quarter design, and the ongoing evolution of U.S. coinage. For collectors and historians alike, the 1980 P quarter remains a fascinating reminder of a pivotal era in modern American numismatics.